to the Boxing Now podcast. I am your host, that dude named Dave, and sitting to my left, but he's my right-hand man, Jorge. How's it going today?
Doing great, Dave. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. So we're going to kick this off. We're going to talk about Jamel Charlo's next fight coming up. We're going to talk about Thriller's pay-per-view that they had. You know, Jake Paul did big numbers, you know. But first, want to click on like, subscribe, hit the bell notification on YouTube here as well. Support the team here, guys. Young, growing here, but you know what? We're trying to bring you some good boxing content, so here we go there. Also, if you're checking out for the audio content, Apple or Spotify or wherever you find us there, we are there. Click like, subscribe, hit the bell notification there. You know, give us 5 stars. So Jorge, one more thing too. Spangler Sports World, channel 249, 1551, our affiliate. Shout out to Eduardo, doing big things in Canada. Spangler Sports World on the Zingo TV app. That's where you can find us here. So Jorge, we are back in this here, man. You know, boxing is coming in full steam ahead. Showtime came out of a schedule. You know, there was some boxing news this weekend, some events, but I want to talk first about Thriller, whatever you call it. I don't know. I know I'm mispronouncing it. There's no H in there, but hey, it is what it is. Jake Paul, something's going on here, man.
Something's afoot there.
Something's going on here, man. They're doing something that we're not seeing happen in boxing before. We ain't seen pay-per-view numbers like this since Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, you know, Oscar De La Hoya numbers they're dropping on their first 2 back-to-back. Jake Paul did 1.45 minimum this weekend.
That was the part that's maybe a little bit more surprising, right? So if you take out the first show that they did, right, with Tyson and Roy Jones, you figure the majority of the buys came to maybe see that. That's what I would have suspected.
That's what I'm thinking, because Tyson is the draw.
Exactly.
Tyson. I'll tell my guy, he's a noun. He's a verb. You know, person, place, or thing. Tyson is Tyson. He drove the needle.
Exactly.
But Tyson was not in this card.
Not in this card, exactly. So for Jake Paul to be the headliner and get 1.45 million buys, those are what we talked about, the De La Hoya numbers, man.
Yeah, numbers. Man. That's Floyd Mayweather against Shane Mosley numbers.
Exactly.
You know, that's the Victor Ortiz fight numbers. You know, when Manny was doing big numbers against Juan Manuel Marquez, you know, and the Tim Bradleys of the world in the early 2000s, exactly. You know, so this is remarkable, but Thriller's putting together a price point that people will buy it, $49.95. Now, we were talking off the air that, you know, $74.99 for normal boxing pay-per-view fights because the A size got to command so much because they got to the point where they're at now. Mm-hmm. But if you told me that a fight event is going to go on for, you know, an event in general, it's going to be what, 2, 3, 4 hours long and $49, and I'm gonna be laughing my butt off and be entertained, sign me up. Yep. You know, but one guy brought on this one article on Bad Left Hook, though, when you bring the circus to town, don't be surprised people go see the bearded lady.
That's a lot of bearded, you know, people want to see the bearded lady. 1.45 million people wanted to see the bearded lady and Jake Paul.
Yeah, so true. So let's get into a little bit here. So he fought Ben Askren, right? Mm-hmm. Man, can we talk about someone packing it in for the check, bro?
Yeah, no, that's
he did it. I understand it. He got a minimum of $600K. You know, whatever's going to happen on the back end, right? You know, but I was just telling you before we started this here. He deserved that freaking flying knee a few years ago when he got knocked out by, was it Sandoval? The way he came, his shape was round. That was the shape he was in.
Bulbous.
And then on the way in, when he was trying to, you know, he was trying to flex, and he was trying to suck his belly in. Like, dude, man, that's a lot of chitlins and chili you've been eating, man. And I know he ain't eating chitlins, but that's the way his body looked like. He was eating a lot of pork, baby. He was eating a lot of fried greens, tomatoes, and whatever was going on in his system. He's like, I don't care.
Supposed to go to a different part of the body. It all ended up by going right there. Shit.
Oh my God. So the fight only lasted 1 round. It was a clean right, the way Jake Paul set it up too. Like, he came, and by him being as tall as long as he is, he set it up and it came from over the top. And when he landed on Ben, his feet took up the ground just a little bit and he went down, and referee gave him the count. He stood up, but it was canceled Christmas, man.
I'm really curious with that entire show, right? So again, didn't watch it, didn't pay for it and stuff, but at the same time, I wish I was like at Nielsen or something measuring the peak viewership for this show. Like, where did it peak out? I mean, where was it at its highest point? I mean, did it get to the actual fight itself and people came to watch the fight, or was it really for the everything before the fight? That's what I'm almost curious to see what that is, because I think anybody who maybe saw the fight itself, you know, when it was discussed, maybe didn't think maybe too much of the fight, right? I mean, I'm just kind of curious. Like, did people come in to really watch the show before the fight, or really did they come for the fight? That I'm always curious about.
I'm gonna say, following Twitter and social media, people are watching the whole damn thing, man.
Well, they get the whole thing. I get that, but I mean, but what was the enticing part, right? I mean, you telling me Jake Paul and Ben Askren that fight, or everything before that? Because
everything before, we can get into that. Let's just get into
because
it.
You texted me. I'm pretty certain you watched it.
Let's just get into it. One of the funniest moments of the night was Oscar De La Hoya.
Well, yes, that was hilarious because as soon as he texted me that, it's easy to find that guy on YouTube being an ass out of himself and being high as hell.
Either let me break it down. If you have not checked on social media, or if you're not checking for Oscar, or if you're not checking for Thriller, whatever the case may be, but either Oscar was drunk, high,
all the above,
or all of the above. See, because this dude here, man, I mean, Oscar's has his demons. We know that. We've talked about this, but him signing up to do this multiple fight deal with Thriller, whoever his friends in this camp, they don't love him. They pushing the alcohol in his corner. They adding lines on that glass table there for him. Whatever's going on. I'm not trying to be jokey about the glass lines, but he looked prime high. He looked like,
half-baked high.
Oh, let me just give an example. They asked him what was his motivation, and he was like, Mike Tyson is my motivation. Thank you, Mike, getting me to give me the motivation to do this. Drunk as ever.
He was all over the place.
Oh my God, slurring his words. He was sweating. He had the drunk high sweat going on his forehead, and it wasn't the camera.
He had the puffiness, man. He had that puffy high. He was all like cheeks and everything, just like
He was red too. He was rosy red, and the way he had the glossy look in his eyes, man. I mean, at first I was laughing my butt off, and then the next part I was like, "Yo, how are you gonna be ready for this fight, right?" But then I thought again and started seeing other videos on FightHype.com. They've been around for a hot minute, putting on great content, and like I said before, Oscar's in great freaking shape. So here's a dude who's in great freaking shape who cannot handle his vices right now. So it's like, I was worried, like, oh man, here's a guy at his age doing his things, but it's like, he's a grown man. And he just continued doing what Oscar does, I guess, right?
Well, I would say I'm gonna give Oscar the benefit of the doubt unless I see more evidence otherwise about how his training regimen is. Right? If he looks good for his training, they just call it one night. He just said, "I'm gonna get messed up."
This ain't one night though. I've seen him in the last 2 years. Video evidence, everything. Like, he's fallen off the rocker a few times.
No. But that you're right, for the last 2 years, yes. But from the moment he started announcing that he was training, and then the announcement of him fighting this summer, he's looked good, right? Mm-hmm. So that I'll give him the benefit of the doubt from the moment he said the training part and the date to now. Okay, he wants that one night. That's that one night. If I don't see nothing else between now and that one night when he fights, then that's what it was to me, basically. So we'll just see. I'm hoping to some degree that he's just basically not doing this shit again. but for the one night that he did it, God bless you, my friend. You gave us some great content. You gave us a reason to talk about you today.
I know, man. And so he's giving himself extra promo. I mean, even as bad as it looks with him, he's obviously not, I hate to say it like this, he's not someone who's fallen off. He's had to hit rock bottom yet because he keeps relapsing and have these issues. So hopefully he does get the help one day that he actually needs, because it's not a good look for him at this age right now, especially if he's trying to still want to fight, But let's just keep it honest. If there's a way to promote his next fight here coming up on pay-per-view in the next few months this summer, he sold it.
Well, let's just put it
he helped sell so many buys now, because the people in that Thriller audience who they know of De La Hoya, but it's more of a young crowd, and that young crowd sees this drunk dude on the commentating table doing it in high, like whoever was on that now is buying that pay-per-view now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty certain that at that moment, I won't be surprised. Like, if you look at the Nielsen ratings, it was like a real peak viewership, maybe even there, just to say, hey, everybody watch this. They can start clipping that shit out and put it out on YouTube and get that money, get those viewerships on YouTube.
So Oscar had me rolling. I mean, at another point too, Pete Davison, comedian, actor, Saturday Night Live. Oh my God, he's funny as hell. We will see him on the next broadcast. Way it went down. Him with Ric Flair. Remember, we're old school WWE, WWF fans.
WCW, NWA, Ric Flair, old school Ric Flair.
So to have Ric Flair there, he was interviewing Jake Paul and all the stuff that he was saying. Snoop Dogg off his rocker, cursing and smoking. Jaleel White aka actor who's Urkel on Family Matters.
Urkel, Family Matters, back in the day.
Great show. Actor. Never was able to shed the Urkel label. Now, happens with child stars. They get that iconic role and then they're kind of stuck with that. So what did he do? He started his own strain of weed called Purple Urkel.
That you know what? Monetize what you're known as, right? That was your niche growing up, and you couldn't shake it. Nothing wrong with monetizing it, my friend.
Man.
So good for him, man.
So I read an article about Purple Urkel before he was on the telecast. And then to see him on there, I'm like, man, Steve Urkel getting high. Did I do that? It's getting high now. He got his own strain. So make you want to kind of check that out when it comes available. I'm kind of curious.
I get a feeling I'm gonna see like with your pants raised up a little bit higher than usual.
Oh man, if I do an episode and my pants all the way up here and I have my other glasses, I'm on that Purple Urkel.
I'm gonna catch him right off the bat. That's advertising right there.
Ooh, wait, sticky icky. So man, what else was going on that card here? Hold on, let me get my notes here. So yeah, I talked about Snoop Dogg and Pete Davidson and Jaleel White. Also too, like Jake Paul has got to fight somebody better now.
I think this time, yes, he has to move. I mean, this was like the joke going back then with any Don King fight promoted. If you got two Don King fighters, and definitely one's taking it. This was basically no different. This was, but yeah, Jake Paul needs to fight somebody who's still amateurish but has some background in the ring somewhere. So one of the names you mentioned was.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. So he's 3-0 now in these type of fights.
Sure.
So I was watching ESPN. They brought up one name that hopefully does not come up is Nate Robinson rematch.
No,
right?
No.
Thank you for saying no.
Nate's coming. Nate's saying it because that's money he can make.
Oh yeah, they broke his minimum like Ben Askren was about 650,000, give or take 620, what it was. But after all the revenue came in from all the pay-per-view, buys, Dish Network, Sat, DirecTV, all those, they say he collected close to over $2 million for that beat down of an ass whooping.
Yep. So a knockdown's worth to him $2 million and plus. He's looking.
And Stephen A. Smith even commented saying that someone from his camp text him and read verbatim. He admits that he didn't train. He did not get the proper people around him. He didn't take it seriously. And that if he gets the rematch, he will hire the right people to train properly. No, please don't do that. No. It took an ass whooping for you to say, you know what? I want another $2 million to train properly. No, we don't believe you, Nate. He got hurt. Like the knockouts were the point of the head where he was getting hit at and the way he was knocked out. And then the memes too, to see the Simba meme, like wake up, like, oh my God. It was along the line, the same memes when Manny Pacquiao got put to sleep against Marquez. Was that Marquez 4?
Yeah, right now this is his ego, his pride talking to some degree, plus the extra zeros added to his paycheck.
Oh yeah,
those two are working together right now. Both sides of that. That
was 3 rounds. He made more money in under 8 minutes than like in one of his NBA years. Like,
like a 3-year contract or something.
Yeah, that's like the league at the time he was playing. That's like the league minimum that he made for less than 3 rounds.
Yep.
I mean, that's good. One thing about boxing, if you can get the right event, that bag is there. The money is there. When people talk about boxing is dead, I want to sidebar. I'm going to get back to it. I want to sidebar. When people talk about boxing is dead, or people say all these things about boxing, look at these checks that's going on. Everybody tunes in when there's an event that people are interested in. Yep. I hate it when I hear people say, oh, it's dead, like the blah, 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 blah. Come on, man. We're seeing Jake Paul do 1.45 million pay-per-view buys. The last one with Tyson, he ain't fought, in 17 years? And that did 1.5, knocking on close to 2 million buys here. The one thing I like to explain to people is that when it comes to boxing, it's fighting. Everybody wants to see a fight.
Of course.
It doesn't matter when you're in elementary school and you're like, fight at 3 p.m. after class, wherever like that. Or if you in McDonald's in the hood and you see someone scrapping it out, with a shake on the ground, everybody wants to see a freaking fight. And boxing provides that for people.
Exactly. I mean, if you think about the modern boxing at the way machine, talk about Rome Coliseum. Talk about the gladiators from back then. You're talking Spartacus. You're talking about all that stuff from back then.
Thank you.
So to the end of the day, you had crowds watching those. I mean, the show itself, shout out to Spartacus, the great show that was on Stars.
Yeah,
that was our show for a good couple seasons right there.
Yes, it was.
And those crowds existed. How can that be any different than the current era of boxing right now, of fighting, right? Any MMA fight, any boxing match, everybody's looking to watch two men, two women give their all in the ring, heads up. To me, nothing says it better right there. That's, no cheating involved. Everything's clean. You try to be as clean as you can. Try to have everything clean. And if you can do all that and provide a great product in the ring, it sells itself.
Exactly. So I had mentioned that Nate Robinson situation there, and a name that's coming up that's been picking up the lines where we're at, because we're in Chicago. Kendall Gill, Chicago great, played basketball out here in the city, went to U of I, got drafted by the Charlotte Hornets back in the day, played for several teams, even came home, played for Chicago, and now he's a Bulls commentator on Comcast Sportsnet. He has a background of MMA and boxing. I remember he was practicing MMA or mixed martial arts during his playing days. He actually has a 4-0 boxing career already. I've seen him in videos long time ago. He is 6'7". Jake Paul's like 6'2". So that's like Deontay Wilder height. You know what I'm saying? His playing days, he's around like 215 to 225. Now, I know he's retired, but he's still in great shape if you watch him on Comcast, commentating, with the Bulls games. So I don't think he's at 220 now because that's his playing shape, but Jake Paul fights at cruiserweight like 190. So I would not see a problem of him being at 190, especially this time in his career right now. So for Jake Paul, who's taking this seriously, he is somebody, like I said, 3 years, just been training. Like, he's rich. He's made money off Disney, all his YouTube success. So he's like, what's my next thing here? I want to do boxing because this is my bag and I love it. And it's kind of crazy because people who do boxing like this don't need to do boxing. People do boxing because it's a way out, so he really likes fighting, but he needs somebody that can actually give him that a competition. Not something that's going to be like, oh, we know it's a sideshow. He's going to beat the crap out of this guy for like, 3 or 4 rounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need somebody like a Kendall Gill or someone along the lines of, who has some sort of a boxing background. Not in, like Max Kellerman said it best. And I want to get your viewpoint on this. He mentioned that it can't be someone who has a great amateur background. Like someone who has 100 fights, he would get beat as well. Because you bring up that muscle memory, that twitch. When you have that kind of training, it's like second nature. When you're seeing shots coming at you, you want to throw punches, and you're seeing angles that he's only done for 3 years, and you've been doing this for 10 or 20 years. It can't be a journeyman fighter that's been 10 or 20 fights, but it's got to be somebody who has a background. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that sentiment there, because anybody who's had an only amateur background, right? Say even a semi-pro fighter, at the end of the day, they know timing. They've seen enough. They've been in the ring enough times to know what timing looks like, especially punch timing, jab timing. When to move, how to move. They've been in that ring long enough to know what that looks like. So Jake Paul's in a tough spot, right? So you can't put him with anybody professional. You can't put him with anybody who's had at least a serious amateur background. Hell, even a halfway serious amateur background, because that's still, I think, more than enough to basically overwhelm somebody like Jake Paul, who's only been doing this for 3 years, but mostly sparring on the side, right? And aside for these, exhibition matches against people who have no other business being in that ring. Sorry, Nate Robinson, you should not have been in that ring. No. And neither did Ben Askren. I'm like, it's got to be somebody that's got some background in fighting, but that doesn't have an overwhelming amateur background and is somewhat a celebrity. So the thing is like for Kendall Gill, like you mentioned, right? We're from Chicago. We know him, right? People who watch the Bulls know him. But would that draw in the ratings and stuff? You have to imagine Jake Paul's carrying a lot of that promotion if that ever happened and stuff. So if it's not Kendall Gill, I wouldn't know who else would it be, but it has to be somebody that's kind of in that gray area, kind of where around Jake Paul's at. And there's not many. That's the unfortunate part. There aren't many names you can think of.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious what's going to happen because he didn't get hurt. It was 1 round. Like I didn't see Ben even throw any punches. And the throwback to the Spartacus line that you said, I don't know who he was working or training with because he looked like a fighter from the 1920s. He had his arms out like this, like put him up, like the little Popeye commercial. I was like, what is his fighting stance? Did he just turn on a TV and say, okay, I'm just gonna do this here? Like you've been you fight in UFC and you don't even have a proper boxing stance. Like, oh my God, I knew it was over. So yeah, so it's got to be someone better than Ben Askren. Somebody better than that. Someone better than Nate Robinson, Kendall Gill. Hey, I hope that comes up. I hope some other names that we see in the next few weeks because he's gonna fight again. He didn't get hurt. He probably gonna make another couple easy. If Nate got 2 million, I'm wondering what Jake Paul got. Like 5-10 million easly, probably.
Well, easily because he was the headliner in this case, so he's gonna get the majority of the paycheck on that one. I think for him this was good. What what would get me to buy a Jake Paul headline only Triller pay-per-view? It has to be someone on the other side that's going to at least make it look somewhat competitive. But that's me being the boxing, the hardcore boxing fan in me. The casual fan will pay for whoever, right? You can put them in the ring with Spud Webb, and they'll probably do this, and they'll probably end up getting like 2 million buys and stuff. But I wouldn't watch it.
Yeah, I hear you.
Dave will watch it. I won't watch it.
Hey, I watch a lot of things, man. I don't care.
I know, but
entertainment.
But
if it's entertainment.
But the key point you mentioned about that, though, I think is the price point. The price point's got you got you coming in and stuff. I think anything higher than $50, like double that would be pushing it. And so
let's be honest here. Like I said, I have tricked off money on worse things, $49 than what this here. I have gone to the bar and spent 2 drinks and a side of food for $67, and didn't even enjoy myself that night. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh wow, this drink was watered down. I can justify price points, things I've done in the past. So it's a good price point. And so I hit the bell because that leads into their next pay-per-view, which we got a little heat on with some of the people, some people who are fans, people are not fans, with Teofimo Lopez. Because
shout out to Teofimo fans.
Yeah. I said I don't like y'all. I mean, if y'all can just act like sensible people here, and can take criticism, like, hey, he's not perfect, but he has a fight June 5th. It's June 5th now, right? Now that's official because the Manny Pacquiao Terrence Crawford fight, but we haven't heard any word on that yet. So Thriller's going full steam ahead now. So I'm kind of curious they're going to be competing or not, but they made it official. They had a little stare down, so that's going to be in Miami. So I'm kind of curious what the pay-per-view number is going to be, knowing that this crowd, I don't know if here's a question. Let me ask you this. Now, do you think the crowd that follows Jake Paul buys this pay-per-view now?
That's a good question. And
that's one thing that I did not see coming. Not the brand now, not the people under, like Jake Paul's part, but the Thriller brand looks like it's hyping us up here.
The Triller brand needs to do really, really well hyping this fight up for a lot of reasons, right? So think again, Tyson and Jones, that was the majority of the buys to me was going to that. For this Jake Paul fight with Van Asken, I was surprised that it made those kinds of numbers and stuff. So there is a bar that Teofimo and Kambosos need to basically reach in terms of their fight, right? The bar's there. It's 1.45 minimum. I mean, that's asking a lot from Teofimo when in the past there was no certainty that he was ever going to draw those kinds of numbers.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the kind of guy to do that. But here's one thing: I will admit to Teofimo Lopez fans, I will eat crow if he gets 1.5.
If he gets 1.5, and
that is some unprecedented that we would would catch scene. If he, let's say, no, I want to go 1.5. If he gets only a million, I say only a million pay-per-view buys. That's game changer.
That's game changer from a hardcore boxing fan point of view, how you view Teofimo. That's still a low number, I think, from Triller themselves, their expectations, right? They made 1.45 close to 2 million buys on this fight alone with just Jake Paul.
This is mad profit. They cleaned up.
So
this is at one point. They say 2 million, right? Sorry to cut you off. Close to 2 million. Even doesn't do 2 million. When we think about the overseas revenue, this is going to do 9 figures when it's all said and done.
Exactly. So to me,
with no audience,
they have a bar. Teofimo's got a bar he's got to reach, and that's going to be, and it would not surprise me he doesn't reach that bar. I almost expected that it won't reach that bar, but if he reaches it, that will be something for us to talk about for the next couple months. Years. Let's
keep it 100 here. It was a purse bid, right? And so for both fighters, it's $6 million. It doesn't have to even do 1 million pay-per-view buys to break even. I mean, literally for the money that the fighters are getting now. Of course, you got Snoop Dogg. You're gonna have all we talked about before. Snoop Dogg's gonna be involved. We're probably gonna see Jake Paul. Probably in the background somewhere. We're gonna see other people. We're gonna see Mario Lopez again. We might see Oscar De La Hoya again. Because the whole brand to sell the next pay-per-view, what he's gonna be involved in. Even if it does 400 pay-per-view buys, it's massive profit. 400 for a $6 million purse bid fight. Because think about it now. Errol Spence Jr. fights, his last pay-per-view fights, and Tank Davis did close to 300,000 or over 300,000 pay-per-view fights, and they make more than Teofimo Lopez or Kambosos is going to be making. So you look at the headliner of the A and B side and that top dollar figure, and you look at others from like Showtime, PBC, and Top Rank and what they get. He does 300 or 400. It's still a profit from what the purse bid is.
For that point, agreed. But I think the numbers themselves have to. I think Triller's expectations that it has to surpass that. They have to expect that.
I don't think they're expecting that. I think they're expecting profits, because these two are unprecedented, right? You're looking at, like I said, $300 or $400, 400,000 buys. If you get after that, they got a gold mine here. They know that they're going to keep rolling this out and just keep jumping the shark more and more.
No, I agree. I think no matter, even if they get, like you're saying, 400,000, that's still a win at the end of the day. But again, with Triller seeing numbers wise, they're going to have higher expectations. That, I mean, they know what their profit line is, but it's got to be higher than that. If they're getting 1.45 for just Jake Paul, they have to be looking at this saying, what can we do? With this fight.
No, I don't agree with you, because Jake Paul is pop culture all the way around the world. Teofimo Lopez right now is still just boxing culture, who's building his brand. So there's a difference in the headliners. Jake Paul, before we know him as what he is now, he is here with us because he had the Disney background. He was big time when he was doing the Disney shows. Mm-hmm. Then how he led to doing what he's doing now to this point here. His persona drives that. He has a worldwide audience of young people that's been following him. Teofimo Lopez has the boxing audience where Thriller's trying to tap in to help grow that as well to make the money. So I see the point you're saying is different because we got someone who has eyeballs on him all the time. Teofimo's still just trying to get there.
But that kind of goes back to my further point from earlier when we were talking about the Jake Paul fight and stuff. How much I wish I was at Nielsen. I would love to find out who paid to really watch Jake Paul fight or who really just came for the whole show prior to that, right? Did you come for, you're going to get everything, but what drew you in? And that's why I wish like a survey was done, so at least I knew as just a consumer, what's going on there? Because I like to understand.
You don't need Nielsen, because all you need to do is look at the mentions on Twitter. Millions of mentions throughout the entire telecast. That's what I'm saying, how social media is big in that aspect of analytics. All you got to go is look at the mentions, look at the ads throughout the entire telecast, and it was high the entire time. Now, if you want Nielsen, you want the numbers, who was actually at that time, okay, but Twitter is actually showing, millions are watching it, and this is what we're talking here, and people are posting different screenshots, videos at their own homes watching the event. Millions worldwide. So we may not have the exact numbers. Twitter gives you a good basis.
Twitter gives me some basis, not the exact.
I'm not saying exact, but it lets you know what people are doing, and everybody was tuned in.
Well, Twitter's information cracks. So at the end of the day, I think people are going to post. We'll call it what it is. We'll clip 100 right there. That's what they're doing there. They're posting and they're broadcasting that out, that message. And I get that part. At the end of the day, I think those numbers will never give me the satisfaction that I'm looking for in terms of really trying to understand what drew in for this particular pay-per-view. Because again, this pay-per-view, it's unprecedented. It's Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Don't tell me I can't be convinced that 1.45 came just to see Jake Paul. That had to be
you sleepy, bro. You sleepy. I'm telling you that his crowd. Remember, we had this argument when we was before this came up, and you had this say, I keep telling you, he has a background that you are ignorant of. I was ignorant of too as well. I can admit that. His background, and people fuck with him that we don't deal with on a daily basis. There's a younger demographic. You want to call them the TikTok crew or fighters like that, but like Ryan Garcia. But there is a subset of America and worldwide that before this, I was not privy of, and you're not privy of. So you're just like, how's it happen? Talk to your kids. They know, like one of my best friends who are they followed before I was even in on him like that. I heard of him. Shoot, my friends' kids knew about him more than I even knew about. That's one thing about us. I gotta admit to this here, as the older generations, we're getting older now. I consider myself Gen X. I'm not a millennial. I missed that cutoff. But when we get older, we tend to not stop looking at the younger generation. We do a lot of times we disregard what they say. And that's why we joke around about the get off my lawn comments. I joke around about that. Or also, we only focus on in our life now because we're getting older and we have different responsibilities. But there was a time when we were at that age and our parents didn't know what we were rocking with. That's Jake Paul right now. That's the point I'm saying here. It's like you may hate him, you may love him, but people are obviously tuning into this dude from Jump Street, from his early days, from him being, I said he'd done some racist stuff back in the day. I won't call him a racist, but he's done that stuff. Everybody can have an act, but not be the label completely. But these things led him to being more popular. So I'm saying that I was even ignorant, but you want to question it? talk to the younger generation. They got the answers, yo, because they're the ones buying it. Not just on non-traditional TV. One thing that's not been released yet is the digital numbers that you buy on your iPad, your iPhone, and your Galaxy devices. That's another thing that we're not seeing that the younger people are buying. That's a whole other group that we don't see.
But that's the thing. When we talk about younger generation and stuff, I mean, how much younger are we talking about and stuff? I mean, my kids are in their tweens and stuff like that, though.
Mm-hmm.
They still have to go through dad to pay for shit. And dad says no, right? So at the end of the day,
it's not about paying. The freebie stuff is out there. 10 to 20 years old, bro. 10 to 20. Look at that 10 to 20 crowd. You ain't got to buy nothing. I'm learning so much from my nephew. I'm just saying, though. He's 13, about to be 14. My oldest nephew is 25. I'm learning stuff that I didn't even know. He's 25. That's a little bit older. But there's a group of people that we don't associate with. We don't regularly talk to. We don't interact with them. And then with COVID, we're not out on the streets kicking it or hanging out in the parks. Or if you're a person that goes to the bars and clubs, you're not interacting with those people anymore. Everybody's at home. So for the last year and a half, we are seeing the people who we don't interact with driving monetary value into boxing.
Okay. So then in this case, when it comes back right there to Teofimo's fight and stuff,
okay,
what is your expectation that he makes right now? Now that we kind of know, we circled back, we talked about Jake Paul and what maybe drove those numbers and stuff. What do you think is going to end up driving this number? You think it's a combination of some of those fighters from Jake Paul's fight who ended up watching it, plus a combination of hardcore fans, or just mostly hardcore fans? I mean,
here's what we got. We got a table set now. What's gonna happen with Terrence Crawford, Manny Pacquiao? That was June 5th.
Which could be impactful. Very impactful.
That is huge right now. And like I mentioned before, when we was getting on Teofimo Lopez fans, and we were talking about Teofimo Lopez's dad, the fact that the pay-per-view industry is not going to allow for multiple pay-per-view broadcasts on the same day because they get 50% off the rip, and they're not going to dilute a possible profit if they throw on 5 or 10 pay-per-view in one night. It's going to be 2, 3 max. If it's going to be 3, it's going to be a mixed martial arts event, like a UFC against boxing. You're not going to see, too many events at the same time. So for him, I am thinking that it needs to be, like I said, 300 the minimum, right? But I think because of Thriller's background, the platform. Oh, and let me add too. See, we're about to get cursed out here. Evander Holyfield is on the card.
Oh, yes.
I forgot about that. So that is going to help double the buys. Now, the big question is, will Manny and Terrence Crawford go forward on June 5th when that is official? That is huge. Now, remember I said that the house wins, but if Bob Arum backs off now, what if the house, I said Bob Arum's the house, he may fall back knowing these Thriller numbers now and may not want to compete with that because they're official now. So, and that's his own fighter and he wants to make money off him for the next few fights here. So I can't be concrete until we know official Manny Pacquiao, Terrence Crawford, A, but B, they added Evander Holyfield on the undercard. Yeah. I'm thinking 1 million pay-per-view buys now. And you know what though? If that happens, I will say that if that fight does not get scheduled the day it is, I will admit that I was wrong. I will say that because Bob Arum came out with Manny on June 5th, and now this is happening in Evander Holyfield. You add all the layers of them jumping the shark this weekend. Man, you know what though? It's primed to do big numbers again.
I think if Crawford and Pacquiao don't fight June 5th, I get that number. So let's put this in. Let's table this rest of this conversation. I think we can have this conversation again.
We got to come back, because we don't have all the information. Because Manny and Terrence is huge. We need to know that, and then more in the undercard for Thriller on June 5th as well. We know it's going to be in Miami, and then any other details that may come about as far as any musical acts is going to be there. You know, because for this one we had Justin Bieber performing this past weekend. I think the Chainsmokers were there this weekend as well. So I'm kind of curious who will be the musical acts as well, because that's what's driving the young folks by. I'm glad you mentioned Bieber's huge. Bieber got new music out, and that I know that helped draw buys to see him perform live. I know the kids did buy that. That's a fact.
Now that I'm glad you mentioned, because I did forget about the musical acts as well too. So that also might have contributed to what the 1.5 definitely would be, at least, right? Because at least
it's just pop culture. Snoop Dogg, Pete Davidson, Ric Flair for the older crowd. You throw the boxing in there, then you throw Justin Bieber in there, you throw the Chainsmokers in there, you throw rappers in there like that. You're covering every culture in an event where people are smoking weed and drinking and having a good time.
So if it's centered around those 3 things right there, I think you're probably right. It could be ending up close to just 1 million without it being Holyfield on the card as well too.
I will say this though, we'll move on. If it does 1 million pay-per-view buys, we're gonna be seeing a Thriller pay-per-view event every 2 or 3 months.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of fighters wanting to get wanting to jump on that ship.
Oh yeah.
There's money to be made there.
Yeah. So on that note, we're gonna transition to our next subject here. We're gonna move away from that and to Showtime. They announced we haven't done a show in about a week, but they announced their summer schedule. And Showtime is, I've noticed every year that things start off slow, then they'll just throw out a barrage of fights like what they did here. And it's great to know, like we were talking a few episodes back, how, you know, we got Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua on the pipeline. We mentioned a few other fights here, but May, June, July, August, and September, they just rolled it out. And they didn't even add the Fox affiliate for PBC because those haven't been announced yet. Yep. So we've already talked about a few fights already. So ones that we were looking at. Jermall Charlo against Brian Castano. That one piqued my interest.
That is a big fight. That's a unification fight at junior middleweight, and that's probably the biggest fight that can be made at that weight class right now. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Actually is the biggest fight. And the winner will be the first undisputed 154 champion. Like there's never been at 154 all 4 belts.
The last time was, and I believe I read this correctly, 2004, Winky Wright.
But he didn't have all 4 belts. This is the 4 belt era now.
Yes,
the 4 belt. So we got to add the WBO now. The WBO came into major prominence in the last 15 years, basically. But Charlo mentioned that he would be the first 154 undisputed champion in the 4 belt era, and so that was like his biggest thing. When people, I mentioned a few episodes back. I mentioned a few episodes back about him going up in weight and things of that nature, and I brought up, he's like, if I go do a different fight, different weight class, I'm gonna lose my belts, and he don't want to lose his belts. He wants history. So I got to give him credit for wanting all 4 belts and going this route, because the same thing that he's doing, I mentioned before, Canelo's doing the same thing too. And we see a lot of fighters bashing Canelo right now. And I hate they're just mad because they're not in that trajectory of fighting for those belts for the undisputed like Canelo's doing. The same thing we might see in welterweight, hopefully. You know, Teofimo Lopez at 135. You know, same thing at heavyweight now. Like, it is great to see that these guys now are saying that, you know what, though, we'll get all these belts. Eventually, the sanctioning parties will strip us, but we'll know who is the guy. Like, it doesn't matter after this fight here, unless they lose one of his belts. We know who's the champion 154. Same thing at heavyweight. If they win and we're going to lose the WBO belt, we know that Joshua and Fury is the champion. You know, so I am happy that he's gone this route and Castano accepted, and we're going to have an undisputed champion on that. And that one's going to be on, let's see here. We have July 17th. So that's the heart of summertime right there.
Yeah,
that's a good. What do you think about that? As far as him going forward, or think people giving him crap because he didn't go up to 160 for certain fights, things of that nature.
No, I think there's a couple of reasons for that. First, you got your other brother's over basically at 160, so I think you basically don't want to step on his toes and stuff. He's doing his own thing over there and stuff. So I think there's that brotherly aspect. You know, as much crap as they give each other as brothers and stuff, but they basically respect the fact that, hey, I'm doing business here, you do business there. Let's not get in each other's way and stuff like that. So that I do like. I as a brother, I would have done the same thing.
It's a business decision too, because they both started at 154, exactly. and they both had both the same time. Then Jermall went up in weight to 160, and it just made sense that I'd be at 160, you be at 154. We don't got to fight each other, and you get this money, and I'm over here, and then you over there. Then so they don't got to fight each other.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting after this fight what Jermall does. Right, if he stays at 154 for another defense, or does he decide to go up to 160, or does he wait for his brother to go up first and then before he comes into 160?
Yeah,
that's what it feels like to me, and that's kind of like how I'm projecting and stuff. I could be completely wrong, but that would make sense to me, right? He'd wait for his brother to go up to 168, and then he jumps into 160 and tries to do the same thing all over again, taking the belts from there. So I'm excited about it because it gives me at least an idea of what the future's going to look like for both brothers, right? Whatever, basically what he's doing, his brother's trying to do at 160. So, and that's a nice segue to his fight, basically, which is going to be on June 19th against Juan Montel.
Yeah, that's a gimme fight here. This is the classic. Let me just get my cheapy mandatory. I don't know if this is a mandatory or not, but this is one of those. I want my gimme fight type of thing. I mean, every guy is entitled to that, so I'm not going to bash him on that because Charlo has. As far as his young career, he's done a good job, and he's not been campaigning against, trash can guys, and the bum of the week.
This is a stay active fight.
So they got him on the schedule of all the weeks that they have lined up. And so I know that Eddie Hearn was giving him crap, saying that he shouldn't do this fight. He should fight Demetrius Andrade. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But, Eddie Hearn's the last person to talk about certain fighters being matched up the way they're matched up right now. So I hate that's the pot calling the kettle black, on that one.
Yeah, that's a promoter talking stuff. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, to me, don't talk mess when you got a couple of crappy fights on your ledger right now. That's all I'm saying.
All promoters
I get it.
do the same thing.
I get it, but don't you trying to hype it up, but at the same time, I'm looking at some of your crappy fights. So,
if he ain't saying anything, he's not doing his job. So to me, he's got to say something, even if it looks foolish.
So they got that going on. So let me see here. So the dates here that they lined up. I'm not gonna go over every fight. I just want to go over the dates so everybody realize these weekends here, so that if you're bored. So we got May 15th and May 29th. We got June 19th, then July 3rd and the 17th, then August 4th and the 28th, and then September 11th. And the one date that I'm looking at also is June 26th, which is Tank Davis pay-per-view against Mark Barrios at 140.
Yep, and that is interesting because it's at 140, right? So I mean, he's moving up 2 weight classes basically for a fight there, and I'm curious about this fight for a couple of reasons, right? So there has been some reports that he's had trouble making weight for some of the fights and stuff. So his fights that he's currently in and everything. So going up to 140 seems like the projection for him. I don't know if that he'll end his career at 140, but he'll be the shortest guy at 140. So it'll be a nice test to see if where his power comes up with him, those 2 weight classes, and how he handles this fight.
If I want to nitpick, I'm just not liking the fact that he's going after the secondary title holders. Because when we're looking at it like he's winning these belts in multiple divisions, but they're not against the main title holders. And that's the problem that, we have in boxing, that we can have another discussion. I don't want to stay in this too long.
Sure.
But we have too many belts in the game. You can literally have the franchise champion in WBC,
the interim belts,
the interim. Then you can have, the
regular, the
diamond. There are so many titles out there. And I appreciate that Tank, because of networks and promoters, we have politics. So you got to navigate to find the best fights possible. And of course, Floyd's going to make sure he puts them in the platform. But the belts that he win are secondary titles. So I will criticize it if he does not angle these secondary titles to fight the top guy after he gets that. Like right now, he's got secondary titles at 130, 135, and could be at 140 now, right? So after this fight here, I understand he's a moneymaker. He's bringing butts into the seats. People are buying the pay-per-view now at the last one, right? But I don't want to see a second title holder again. I want to see you go after the main guy. If he's at 140, 135, 130, I don't want to see you going after the WBA secondary, regular, interim, medium champion belt.
Yeah.
If I have one, I'm not mad at the fighter he's fighting against. It's a quality opponent. I'm just looking at the route he's taking. It's like, if I want to nitpick, it's like, okay, no more secondary titles. Let's go after the big dog now. You are good enough now. And that I understand the marinating game, the Teofimo Lopez or Garcia, who it is, it's got to be the top title holder, not the secondary after this next fight.
Yeah, I'm just going to be curious after the fight what he decides to do, right? Whether he wins or loses. He's not going to lose. I don't see him losing this fight, but things happen. It's boxing.
Yeah.
I would say, though, if he wins 140, he wins there. I mean, what does he do? Does he end up staying there, campaigning at 140? Does he come back down? So
it makes it interesting. I know it may not happen no time soon, but the guys that Aram got at 140, especially the big unification fight, I'm like, if he looked, we know Tank looks good, but if he looks extra good at 140, it puts more questions then, because we want to see more fights then, because another division who's a hot guy, and we want to see him against the other players.
Yep.
So that's why if he looks great at 140, it's just going to make, I want to see more of him, but then it's like, okay, I want to see you do it against that guy.
Exactly. You'll from that, and then from that perspective, you can look at the top 140 and say, I want that guy. I want to see that fight. And that's going to be exciting to watch. So I like where his head's in this fight, and I'm hoping he pulls it up, because I want to see what he does moving forward. I want to see a great fighter do some great things.
On that note, I think this might be the last subject we may talk about on this episode here. I want to we've had a couple back and forth on this when we were talking on the phone. Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Looking at the time here on this here. So we got Ryan Garcia fighting Javier Fortuna July 9th. And then we got Devin Haney against Jorge Linares on May 29th. We talked about these fights here. What I want to bring up is a discussion that me and you had. You brought to my attention, you kind of felt that maybe Garcia, after these last signings here, that he could be or is possibly ducking Haney now.
And that's not just from the outsider looking in and stuff, and actually, getting some other perspectives as well. That's what the appearance looks like. Here's my beef with some of this. I mean, and we talked about a little bit last week in our pre-meeting, but never got to putting it on the show. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about it now, but I've had a chance to look at some more stuff, right? Stuff that I've pointed out, stuff that I've read. Others are looking at it, starting to look at it to the same degree, maybe about halfway there, right? They're waiting to see after these fights happen for each of these guys, for Garcia and Haney, if it looks like they're, if Garcia is ducking and stuff, right? Haney drives me crazy because he basically puts out a tweet after the fact about Garcia ducking and stuff. Basically, the tweet basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Garcia's rather fights the title eliminator instead of fighting the title holder, which on that tweet itself, if he had said that during the, a little bit after, like the whole Garcia trying to go after a Pacquiao fight, or what was the other guy that Garcia was trying to fight?
Manny Pacquiao.
Matt Pacquiao and who else?
So we got Teofimo Lopez, Tank.
Lopez. Yep.
Lopez are the players for him right now in the stratosphere.
Exactly. So to me, that looked like that was, Tank Davis. That was the one where he did the FaceTime conversation.
That was on Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson, and when Tyson was trying to broker that fight next.
Exactly. So when he was looking for those fights, Haney was, to me, a little bit more quieter than he needed to. I think if he had said that tweet maybe somewhere before he took this Linares fight, then maybe I would have been like, okay, this is something I can probably jump on board with and say, hey, maybe Garcia is ducking. Then you kind of brought me back to earth a little bit on this and said, you know what? It isn't a duck based on the way the fights were lined up, right? So I'll put this one on Haney. He decided to take this Linares fight first instead of trying to broker the fight with Garcia next. If Garcia was stung, whatever the reason was that fight didn't happen, at this point, it's already late. And that tweet came out late. Mm-hmm. So to me, let fight on your schedules. But after this fight, if I'm seeing Haney not fight Garcia and Garcia fight somebody else, Garcia's ducking.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Nick, because they both got belts that should be consolidated. They both got WBC belts.
And I blame the WBC for this interim bullshit.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you got Teofimo with a franchise belt.
Mm-hmm. That he don't gotta defend it. Exactly. You just pick and choose, like, okay, I do want to fight this guy in WBC when the money's right, technically.
Exactly.
I get to hold this belt. So you don't have to defend the franchise title, technically.
which I think is bullshit, because at the end of the day, if you're a title holder and you're being challenged, defend, damn it. And in this case, and then you got Haney, who's got a regular belt.
And this belt came about because Lomachenko wouldn't fight Haney.
Exactly.
So we're in a situation because we literally had a top guy. And here's the thing. I understand why Lomachenko did not fight Devin Haney. He ended up fighting Teofimo Lopez. So that was the bigger fight. And the more people knew about Lopez. So it makes sense. Like, if you were going to fight somebody, you cannot be mad at Lomachenko for doing that, right? Yeah. But the WBC created this situation here where that Devin Haney wanted the fight. He pressured the fight. He was on a full blitz. And then what did they do? Create the franchise champion.
Enabling this shit.
And then Teofimo won. So he became the franchise champion. And so then Ryan Garcia and some interim stuff going on, and he was got his interim belt. And so you have this big confusion that literally can be consolidated. These two guys fight. Now, just like you're saying here, when we had our conversation, there were many people thinking that Garcia's ducking. You seen Eddie Hearn, they had one-on-one conversations. He was really hyping it up, and they're both on the zone. And the one thing that I pointed out was like, Garcia was hunting for the big fish. Now, you can say that, he screwed up and effed himself because he didn't get the fight, but you can't be mad at him for going after the big fish when the big fish were actually interested. Like Tank Davis, we talked about that, right? Devin Haney can't compete with that one. So maybe he should have dropped that tweet like, I'm here too. So if y'all two don't fight, I'm here if y'all can't get the numbers right. That's what Devin Haney should have been doing, but he didn't, though, right? So tanking, that didn't fall through. He went after Manny Pacquiao. If you're Devin Haney, you're like, I can't freak with Manny Pacquiao. But he should have said, hey, if Manny Pacquiao falls through, like we talk about, because that fight might fall through, I'm right here. And so he didn't do that, and he got quiet. And I'm not mad at him for fighting Linares right now. That is a good fight for him. At his age, at his record, this is the next step up for him to know that he's legit. Like, we know he's the real deal. We know he's real deal. We've seen his skills. But now he's going against a guy who has over 50 or 60 fights, 3 division champion, put in that work, a little bit older now. But he's no more tricks in the game than Haney's ever been alive in. You know what I'm saying? It's one of the type of fights that sets you up for the next part of your career. So I'm not mad at him for this fight here. It's May 29th. But you can't call someone out for ducking when you know that the other guy who's bigger than you, name recognition, value-wise, that you're not calling him out enough. Sometimes you got to be an idiot. Sometimes you got to be a brat. Sometimes you got to bang on someone's door and say, I thought I told you that we won't stop. I thought I told you that we won't stop. Remember Chris Rock in Head of State when he went to debate? He said, I thought I told you that we won't stop. You got to keep pushing for the fight until you get it. You can't be quiet. And then when something happens, then you talk about it later. That's the problem. But now, they're fighting a month and a half apart, May 29th. And was it July 9th? That's less than a month and a half. That's just a month and a week. So if they both win, the WBC should say, hey, consolidate both these belts and you guys fight by the end of the year. Because it'll be July, September, August, September, October, these guys should be fighting. The way I look at it. But I can't call the duck because Haney should have did more. Now, his promoter, I will give Eddie Hearn credit. He was talking to Ryan Garcia, he was trying to put that out there. So he's doing his job. Now, Devin Haney, got to do your job. You got to win and talk.
Yeah, no, I think this dichotomy is interesting, right? You got Haney, who is the champion, a regular champion, having to call out of and prior to that, Garcia wasn't, he was fighting for an interim title against Campbell. Wasn't a champion. Was calling out fights. You would think Garcia, who's looking for a title, would have just jumped on this. So he gets his interim title, right? Which I blame the WBC again for even having this dumb idea. But be it as it may, Garcia should have been coming after Haney, anybody with the belt, right? And that's kind of what he did, right? Except it's interesting, right? You have Haney on your same network that you also fight on, but you went after Davison and Pacquiao first. I get it. Big dogs, big money. Yeah, I completely agree. But at the end of the day, after he had went after Davis first, Pacquiao next, Haney was nowhere out of his mouth after that. It was crickets after that.
True.
So based on the timeline of events that happened there, it bugs the hell out of me. I can see why some people, boxing journalists, sports writers would say Garcia is ducking if you follow that logic. But the fights have been made. I'll leave it at that. And they should be fighting each other before this year's over. Granted, they both win, which I'm expecting them to. But
I will say this, though, to add on to that. No Maddie, no Tank. You don't speak on Devin Haney, right? Devin Haney's kind of fight. You gotta talk it up a little bit longer. You can't go straight to it. Like from a money perspective, when you're, I know you don't like this, what I'm going to say here, but it should be next, right? It should happen now. But when you look at everything that happened with Ryan Garcia, with those two fighters, it makes sense that they both go the route they're going right now to set up this next fight now. Because the problem, though, is, like I said again, Devin Haney doesn't have the name yet, and they're trying to build this bigger. So if it happens 4 or 5 months later, I'm cool with that. If we're like this in 2022, we got a problem. Right? We have a problem. But for right now, Ryan Garcia is the talk of the town for the young fighters. Devin Haney wants Garcia's clout. At the end of the day, Devin Haney would not be here if he had the clout, extra personality, and the fanfare and the fans that Garcia has.
This goes on with our little side debates we have sometimes in our pre-meeting and our conversation when we talk about when to marinate and not to marinate.
Yeah.
And this is basically like a self-creating marinade that could blow up.
It could. Yeah, that's what I said. I know you don't like it, but I'm not talking about Bob Aaron with Juan Ma. No. That went on for 2 years. I can understand if you do these fights here and then you have a fight down the line, like before the end of the year. So basically, these guys been talking for this calendar year with Tank Davis and with Teofimo Lopez. So if you're within the same calendar year and you're talking and you got a little politics of these belts, I can understand that. But we get into the next year, and these three guys have not gotten a ring by summer 2022, we have a problem. And then they deserve the full onslaught, dogging, ducking, whatever it is that's going on at that time. that everybody from the box community should give that to him, whoever's at fault.
Yeah, I mean, but and at this point, I'm not going to give it to Haney because he's got a belt. So at this point, Garcia,
they both got belts though. That's what I'm saying.
Well, interim.
It's still got to be defended. You still got to pay the sanctioning fee. And the WBC, I know, but the WBC, you know, those wrinkles. You know that.
That belt don't count. Come that interim title.
Hey, I don't mean sanctioning fees count.
Hey, look, whatever happens in whatever ends up in the WC's checkbook and stuff, you know, good for them. More power to you and stuff. But come on, as a hardcore boxing fan, the interim title.
Yeah. So on that note, we're gonna close out shop. We're gonna come back to this thing because, you know, like I said, that fight's at the end of May for Haney, and then we'll talk about Garcia because he's gonna be on social media talking a lot of stuff too as well. So we're gonna be talking about these fights here. Like I said, they're a month and a week apart basically, and both these guys win. They both have no excuses right now, and of course we know that most of it's gonna be aimed at Garcia. We know that Haney's not gonna say no to it. It's gonna be on Garcia.
It's on Garcia.
It's gonna be on Garcia. I will say that it's gonna be on Garcia after July 9th. Whether July 10th, whatever the date is that they start talking, whatever it is that they both
he wins that fight at post conference. He should already be singing in the ring.
Yeah, there should be
actual post conference.
There should be contracts already.
The
ready
contract's
to be
already written, ready to go. It should already be signed afterwards. I don't want to hear shit. Anything after that, you're just delaying to delay, and it's just dumb after that.
So on that note, people, thanks a lot for checking in. Click on like, subscribe, click on the bell notification below for YouTube. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or other audio devices there that you click on, you know, like 5 stars. Don't give us 4 stars on that. And also check us out on the Zingo TV app, channel 249 and 250 on Spanglish Sports World. Once again, I'll say shout out to my man Eduardo. Gotta holler at you, man. Heard you had a couple big interviews last week, man. Also, too, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Jump Off Live. We took a week off. We're going to be back again. So check us out. We have JD, Johnny Dangerous, Jeff Smith, and myself here. That dude named Dave. Wednesdays, 8 p.m. on YouTube. Jump Off Live. What you got, Jorge?
Live_Dominoes is the name of the Twitch channel. You can find us on Twitch. We're on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. on the road. We're at the PL Lounge in Chicago, 3456 North Pulaski, 8 p.m. Central. There's the stream time. You can get there as early as 6, grab some food, drinks, play some dominoes beforehand, and then the stream starts and you can get part of the show. That runs from 8 to 11 p.m. And then on Thursdays and Saturdays, 8 p.m. all the way to 11 at our usual spot at La Taberna. Also want to give one quick shout out to Edgar Berlanga fighting this weekend against Damon Nicholson, and we'll talk more about his future in the next show.
Okay, yeah. So check that out. He's going to be on ESPN, Edgar Berlanga. So on that note, I have Jorge, aka Papo. I'm that dude named Dave, and this is Boxing Now, the BMP podcast, and we'll check you guys out the next time here. Peace out.
Good night, folks.